I'm Alex Del Soro with the Rowers Choice Network, and this is episode 4, season 3 of podcasts. And it always blows my mind when I say that because I can't believe how many we've done. We're traveling across the states all the way over to California for a guy that needs no major introduction. This is Jack Nunn. This guy has been a rowing staple. He is an Ironman athlete, and he's part of the Rowers Choice family. And I'm excited to talk about his trajectory in rowing, where he took his life and what he's doing today. So Jack, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is an honor I know we talked a lot about being on the show for a while, so it's cool to finally be here and a part of this group. Honored that you guys reached out. I rode with Wallen, Mike Wallen, and so we have that connection. It's great to be here.
So Jack, I've interviewed non-rowers, okay, but every rower asks the same question. Where were you? What year was it when you picked up an oar and started rowing?
Well, for me, a lot of people actually, not to really dive into it, but I have to. But a lot of people know me because of my father. So when they hear my name, they're like, John? And I'm like, no, it's Jack. It's, so I have to, I've been living in that shadow my whole life. Maybe some of you don't know, maybe you do. My father, John Nunn, is kind of a big deal. I joke with him after every Olympics that goes by for the United States, because he becomes more famous as more years go by, because he is one of the few Olympic medalists in sculling in U.S. rowing on the men's side. The women's side are killing it. They're doing so well. But the men's side, we just haven't had that, it's just different. We pick up sweep. I mean, we start with sculling, then we go sweep, then we go back to sculling, or sort of. And so anyway, but my dad won a bronze medal in 68 for the U.S. team in the double with his partner, Bill Maher. And then he became the Olympic sculling coach in 1976. He coached that quad that year to a 5th place finish, which is one of the best finishes the U.S. has done. Also recently, within the last 30, 40 years, if you look back. So growing up, it was kind of destined. I was picking up oars, rowing with my dad reluctantly. I didn't really like it at first. Down in Long Beach, he would bribe me by saying, we're going to go to Tommy's Burgers. So he bribed me with food to get down there, like chili burgers, cheeseburgers. No joke. Like when I was 5 years old, I think I went out with him. 10 years old, I think he was trying to kind of, not push it, but introduce me to the sport. So let's be honest. I mean, not many people row out here in California. It's not a huge deal. It's not a lot of scholarship. There's not a huge opportunity. Now it's becoming bigger for women's sports, especially. But so yeah, I mean, I was kind of dabbling into it, rowing a little bit. I think I remember being like 12 or 13 and kind of getting this like competitiveness starting to go in, with sports, because I was doing soccer, baseball, ice hockey. Actually, I grew up playing hockey, out of all things. A lot of people don't know that. I started skating when I was 5, loved playing ice hockey, started playing when I was 8, played through high school, played in college. Actually, I got in trouble for that. That's a whole other story. Anyway, so I picked up ice hockey and fell in love with that sport. Wayne Gretzky, of course, came to LA, so it was a huge thing in the 90s. So that was my first kind of love for sport. I mean, I love baseball and stuff like that. But when I picked up rowing, it was, I would say 13, 14 is when I got on the machine. And my dad was like, yeah, there's like some online stuff, like the logbook on Concept 2. You can go on there. And back then, this was the early 90s. They still had that. They had competition. You could log in your score. So I'd rip a 2K and I'd be like, let's see where I'm at. And I was like, I think I was like, I don't know, 40th or something like that. Or, I was like, I'm not too far off. So, and then really when it came to, I actually came home one day, to make a long story short, came home one day, was playing soccer, baseball. I quit both sports. Both my coaches were not great. I just didn't like it anymore. burned out, whatever you want to call it. Remember exactly where it was. I remember the exact time. It was in my kitchen, or in our kitchen, and my dad was sitting on the living room or on the kitchen table, and I just told him, I go, hey, listen, I'm that's it. I'm quitting soccer, baseball. I'm done. And my dad looks at me and he goes, okay, well, and this was midway through my junior year, so I would say like November, December, so right before break, my junior year, 1996, 95. 96 is when I started rowing. So he said, okay, you either get a job or you do something else. You find something else to do. And I go, well, I don't want to work. And I go, what about that rowing thing? And he didn't even say anything. He just freaking jumped out. He launched himself out of the chair, ran upstairs, called the coach, and I was there the next day.
And okay, hold on. So let me dive into this really quick. All right. So you had arguably one of the most successful sculling rowers in the United States, right? In your living room every day, every night, right? As a father, he wasn't pushing you to do rowing, right? He would say, hey, let's go get some burgers, let's go get some chili dogs. You could hop in a boat. You kind of dabbled. And then what's really cool about it is like he let you sort of find it yourself. So then over the course of, by the time you're 13 to the time you're a junior in high school is what you're saying. So like junior in high school, 1995, 96, it hits you like a ton of bricks, right? Can you bring us a little bit more of that energy and mental focus that happened to you at that time? Like, why did you make that decision? What was it about soccer and baseball and the future of your sport that made you say, Dad, I'm going rowing?
Oh yeah, I mean, that was a big deal. I mean, I'm getting the chills just thinking about it right now, because that set the whole precedent of the rest of my life, essentially. I mean, right. That choice, and I knew that was a big deal because I grew up, wanting to. I loved hockey, but I knew it wasn't. I was only playing like once or twice a week. We just didn't have ice time. I mean, it's crisis here in LA. We had rinks with like leaky roofs that we play with cones on the ice, and like chain link fences. I mean, there was no infrastructure for that. So I knew that, hey, that's not probably going to be even a college thing or whatever. But soccer, I was like, yeah, baseball was my thing. Like, I really loved it. I was good at it when I was younger. I was like all-star, whatever. Went into high school though, and high school changed. When you get to the higher levels, the coaches get more serious. My dad coached me in soccer and baseball as well. And actually, ice hockey, he coached everything. He's always around. And I tell my dad about certain things that my coaches would tell me, and he's like half of it was BS. He's like, that's BS, and I'm not even a soccer or baseball player, but I know that that's not BS. Like, so it got more BS as things moved on. The coaches would bench me for no reason. This happens, right? In high school. So I was fed up with it. I just didn't like my coaches. I was at a small private Catholic school in San Pedro. It was just like, I don't know.
What was the team what was the high school that you went to?
Oh, it's called Mary Star. It's bigger now. They changed their campus, but our graduating class was 74 people.
So you had a rowing program? Like, you could sign up for a rowing program down there?
They didn't have a rowing program. So the way it works in LA, California, we have, not California, because Northern California has like St. Ignatius, Oakland Strokes.
Yeah.
Oakland Strokes is a pool of athletes that I believe comes out of different teams from high schools. Long Beach Rowing Association, Long Beach Juniors, started in 1986, and they pool athletes from around Southern California, from mainly Wilson High, Poly, local Long Beach high schools, and then they pull a little bit from Peninsula. Now, Peninsula, PV, Palos Verdes, and then also Mary Star, San Pedro. That's a little bit closer. You could either go MAC, which is in Marina Del Rey. They have a rowing center there, and that's LA, unified. So it's clubs here in LA, and Newport pulls from Newport Aquatic Center, NAC. They have a good program. They pull from different schools in Newport. You can kind of
so I'm just trying to like visualize this. Like, You go,
Yeah.
Dad, I'm fed up with baseball. I'm not getting where I want to be. The coaches is like, sometimes what they say is bullshit. And sometimes they say like, I just don't jive with it. So like as a 16-year-old boy, you realize you're not doing that for the future. So you say, hey, I'm rowing. Where did you row? It was at Long Beach Rowing Juniors. Is that where you
Yeah.
jumped into?
Yeah. LBJC, Long Beach Junior Crew. So I
All right,
jumped
so
in
you
junior
jump
crew.
in there, right? You jump in
Yeah.
here and you got the erg thing going. 1996, and rowing in 1996 was like a weird era, right? For high school and junior rowing.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking like East Coast, the best teams were like Dave Funk and Ashton Funk. These guys are like these guys that I grew up with, McDevitt. They were like men among boys, and Atlantic City High School was like they were the best team in the country for Scholastic. It was like a bunch of guys that failed at football that got into rowing. So like guys like you that started rowing, and things changed later on. They became like nerds. Like rowing was like a bunch of nerds later on in the years. But like it wasn't a thing. Like rowing wasn't popular in 1996 for high school rowing. Um, but you obviously found success. Like what did you find? What were the guys like that you rode with at Long Beach? Is what I'm getting at. Like, what were they like? Were you a different breed? Were you kind of an outcast? How did you relate to those guys?
Well, yeah. So my first coach was this guy Ken Puri, who's like a kind of a national team, but sort of trying to crack it into training. And he was a great guy, great coach. I started rowing as starboard, man. I remember my first day. I was like, "What the hell?" Like they're calling starboard port. I was like, "What is going on?" Like, I was still kind of out of it for so long. I was sculling a lot too, which actually I think helped familiarize myself with rowing a bit. Not enough, but I started sweep. I did sculling. And then my next coach was Pete Vescovi. The Vescovis are kind of a little bit bigger, like, name, because he was trying to crack it. This is Peter, was trying to crack it in the lightweight events with this guy, Scott Charette. These are Long Beach guys that were trying to train for the national team and make it to the Olympics, So, and they made it fun. But I have to tell you, and this is important for people watching out there, maybe for kids or whatever, they made it fun. And that was the thing I was searching for. Like these coaches, especially Pete Vescovi, shout out to him. I mean, this guy, he cracked jokes. He made it fun, and I just had a great time with the guys. The guys came from all walks. I mean, mostly some soccer guys, some swimmers, the typical. I was definitely the bigger kid.
Well, so tell the audience, man, what are your numbers? Like, how tall are you? How much do you weigh?
Well, yeah. So in high school, I mean, I kind of grew a lot, but I was 6'3". I was still, 6'3", 190 in high school. And then, college, I think national team, when I was on the national team, I was 6'3", 205. Those were my, not huge. I would say average, maybe even on the smaller side now because all the guys are giants, but.
So
Yeah.
I mean, those are pretty big stats. Like I went to high school and we were some of the bigger guys, and I'm 6'3". I was 185, 180. And then I think the biggest guy in our boat was 6'5", 210. Like that was the biggest guy, and everybody else was pretty small. So, all right. So just to keep things rolling here, you graduated from high school in what, 97?
Yeah.
And then now you went, and we talked about this with Wallen. So the league commish of PRL, you row with this guy. So I love the difference. Like Philadelphia guy, St. Louis
Yeah.
Prep, meeting Jack Nunn of Long Beach. So you decided to go to Cal, right? So you stayed local. What was the decision to stay there and row for Cal? Like what was going through your head at the time?
Oh man. So there's a lot of stories here, but I'll try and get, be concise and be organized with it. So I applied to like 14 different schools. My dad was like, "You're applying everywhere because you have no idea where you're going." I'm like, "Yeah, that's true." And I just applied because I didn't know where I could get in. My grades were average, and my dad went to Cornell. Cornell, he's freaking Hall of Fame at Cornell. His boat is in the foyer of the boathouse. Like when you walk in, it's like John Nunn, so it's like, my dad's like, "Well, you could go to Cornell, but then he'd tell me all these freezing tundra stories and growing up like Canada, like freezing your butt off. I'm like, I don't want to freeze. And then I got my dad knew everybody. So my dad was like, what school do you want to go to here? I got Roop on the line. We got Gladstone going here, but he's at Brown, but he's at Cal now. We got, all these coaches, Wisconsin, Washington, I was talking to. And so anyway, basically I had my choice of where to go. I got a call from Brown University one morning, and they're like, so Jack, we hear you want to row for Brown. I'm like, yeah, I guess. And they're like, the guy's like, I think it was, he's like, yeah, well, you're in. So just let us know if you want to go. And I'm like, what the? So my mistake going the next day to practice was like, I got into Brown University, and all the guys were like, you mother, because they all knew my dad, and they're like, you just got in because of your dad. No, I had good scores. Like I had a 6:30 2K. I mean, junior national team cutoff times. I was doing well, rowing well. I had decent grades and a decent SAT. So my decision to stay in California was really number one was Gladstone. So Gladstone came from Brown the year prior, I think in 96 or 95. He came from Brown, had a successful career with Zeno and all these guys that he coached. They had a good run, national championships of future Olympians. And then I went up to a recruiting meeting or just a meet and greet. And my dad rowed against Gladstone. When my dad was at Cornell, Gladstone was at Syracuse. Wow. So they were just talking in that room at the Kaibright Boathouse for like an hour. I was just there, just silent, and then Gladstone turns to me. He's like, so it seems like, you got things in order. Would you like to come here? And I go, yeah, I'd like to come to Cal, Gladstone. And, Gladstone's super, I mean, he was super, his voice, the way he talked, very articulate. He's very intimidating, and so, but serious. But I was like, yes, I'd like to come. He's like, okay, well, you're in. Welcome to Cal. And I was like, okay, and but anyways, I want to tell you a really funny story that I've told many times, but it's so good. You got to hear it. So I went on that recruiting trip, the same trip I went to Stanford. And those are the only two schools I talked to. And as far as like meeting. Now, my grandfather, it gets more interesting. My grandfather played in 2 Rose Bowls at Stanford in the 30s. Yeah. 6'3", 220. Played 2 Rose Bowls in the 30s. My grandfather was a Val boy. He's etched in stone at Stanford. A Val boy is very famous, especially USC people hate it because the Val boy, they were like a club and they vowed they'd never lose to USC in football. They're famous, like crazy. So anyway, so he's etched in stone there. My grandfather was like, listen, if you want to go to Stanford, you got your way in there. And, it just so we have connections. I go, okay. Well, Stanford at the time had a crap rowing team. So I was like, I'll go and meet them. My dad was like, let's go and meet them. Make your grandfather happy. This is my mom's dad. Actually, I'm named after him, Jack. And so I went up to Stanford for our first meeting and we show up and I forget the coach's name at the time, but anyway, my dad and I were there and we waited in the lobby and we waited for half an hour and then we waited for an hour. And the person came up to us and was like, yeah, I'm sorry, he's not going to be able to make it today for your meeting. He thought that the meeting was some other time and, he's mistaken if you want to come back. And my dad never gets upset. He's super humble. He's like, never talks about all this stuff for we're walking back to the car. We're driving over to Berkeley. The whole time he was like, no one does this to me. No one disses a Olympic medalist, Olympic coach. Do they know who I am? You know who I am? I am John. I'm like, oh my God. And I look at him, I'm like, what the hell, And I'm freaked out of my dad. Like my dad's just getting fired up. And he goes, and then he turns to me and he goes, you're not going here. I don't care if you get in, you're not going. No one does this to me. I'm like, what about me? This is my recruiting trip, So he was totally offended. Now I bring this story up and he's like, I didn't say that. I didn't do that. I'm like, yes, you did. I was there. Yes, you did. You totally did. So I was shocked, like, about that. That was just a really funny story. I got an apology letter from Stanford,
Wow.
which I posted in my room because I thought that was awesome, like, because Stanford Cal, we have a huge rivalry, even though they sucked when we were there.
So
now,
Jack, this is funny. It's very rare you find someone who just says, yeah, Brown, you're in, Cal, you're in, Stanford, you're definitely in, but go fuck yourself. We're not going to have you here. So you were at Cal at an era where it was probably the most winning time in Cal history, right? You guys were the fastest group of men in the country, arguably could have done well at the Olympics, right? With your group of guys. Everyone watching, everyone listening, they know who Steve Gladstone is. Just in so many words, what was that atmosphere like at Cal being around the fastest men in the country? Like, what was that experience like for you? Can you think about like a couple words that expresses that?
Nerve-wracking, cutthroat. You just feel it. I don't know how to. I don't want to say like you had to be there, but like you can't replicate that now. Even during races, when I show up, I still get those nerves. Those nerves. Like, okay, maybe for people watching out there, those nerves before you do a 2K or that nerves before you do a race. That was every day. Every
day. Now, how well did you do? So what we talked to Wallen about this, and I've talked about this crew that you guys had ad nauseum. I mean, you put 5 beers in Wallen and he will not shut up about Cal, right? Now there's this other guy that I know, Davis Bales. He's a Brazilian. He rode for Cal years ago, like back in the late 80s, right? I guess, like, what boat were you in? What boats were you in? And how successful were you at the IRA in those boats?
Yeah, so there's some confusion. There's some some people get riled up and stuff like that. So just to put it in context, though, I want people to know when I was at Cal, and this is no joke, there was 12, count them, 12 Olympians. I counted them and I went through the lineup. 12 Olympians during my tenure on the varsity. So from sophomore year to senior year, at any given moment, there were 12 Olympians from various countries that were competing for spots, throughout that time. Now in 2000, it was a weird year because some guys took off, so maybe a little less, right? But then senior year, it went back. So it was like floating around 8, I would say, like 8 to 12 Olympians. Plus we had 3 guys from the Irish national team, John Hooley, Paul O'Sullivan, and this guy Porrick Hussey, who actually won the freaking gold medal in the single at the Nations Cup in 2001 and beat Nito Simonson. And he wasn't even boated. He didn't even make a freaking boat at Cal, and he won the single in 2000. Yeah, that guy. So it's like, there's all these stories that hover around. Now we had the Serbians. I
mean, like you said, it can't be replicated, right? The Cal, that era. So were you in the 3V, the 2V? Like where did you sit?
Yeah. So my freshman year, I just knew I had a feeling. I was like, if I don't make this freshman boat, I'm screwed, like right off the bat. And my dad said the same thing. We talked every day. My dad went through kind of similar situations at Cornell. So my dad and I would talk. He goes, you have to do anything you can possibly to make that freshman boat. So I was the last guy to make it. I was also the youngest guy. I was 17 when I graduated high school. So, they tried to hold me back when I was younger. And anyway, they didn't. And then it's a disadvantage, when you're that young. Jake Wetzel at the time was in our freshman boat. He was 21. Nito was 20, I think. Nito Simonson. And so I was 17, just turned 18, youngest guy, kind of maturing. Anyways, it came down to a 2K test. Craig, I'm Arcanian, bless his heart, was my freshman coach. A lot of you guys know him as the Stanford head coach, now recently retired and the whole program's done. But Craig Emerkanian was my freshman coach, and he came to me and said, hey, if you want to be in this boat, you got to pull a 615 2K. That's it. Like you pull a 615 and you're in. And granted, I come from like a 630 in high school to 622, and then I had to drop 7 seconds in a few weeks. And my dad came up, put the pressure on, lights were on. My buddies at the start at the erg test, my buddy turns to me right before, he goes, hey, does it make you nervous your dad's here? I'm like, you mother, yeah, of course it does. But anyways, I ripped the 615, made the boat, got in. I was the last guy to make it. Now we went on that boat. We went on to go undefeated. We were the first undefeated freshman boat in 100 years at Cal. That set the tone for the next 3 years. Jake Wetzel was in our boat, Nito Simonson, Luke Walton, and many others that were Eric Teray, Franco, our coxswain. So moving down the line, my sophomore year, 1999, was probably one of the hardest years, and I was in the JV. And that year, though, we went to Henley that summer, and we had two guys, I think, or one guy from the varsity. One guy couldn't go. Eric Teray couldn't go. So we had one guy from the varsity. And Gladstone was like, you know what? We were neck and neck with our JV and varsity that year. We were only losing to the varsity by a second or two in practice.
Wow.
And I say that with complete confidence. That is the truth. So we basically had two varsity boats. On the times, if you look that year, we won that varsity IRA and we set that course record. I think it held for, I don't know, for that time on the JV, I think it held for a number of years. Anyways, that boat, we were super fast. And we went to Henley, and Gladstone was like, you know what? I'm not putting you guys in the temple. I'm not putting you guys in the boat in the race you should be in. I'm going to put you guys in the ladies' plate, the varsity event.
Wow.
We went and we represented. And at that point, I want to correct people out there, because there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, Jack never made the varsity. Well, at that point, and verbatim from Gladstone, he goes, you guys are the varsity. You're the varsity boat. I don't care what anyone says. And he got really passionate about it because his varsity couldn't go. We went and competed at the ladies' plate. That's a varsity boat event. Mm-hmm. And we made it to the finals. We beat Knott's, the British lightweight national team, who had never been beaten in like 8 years. They beat Zeno's boat from Brown. This is the lightweight British national team. We beat them. We beat some German boat with some Olympic gold medalists in there. And we faced Cambridge, Oxford, Brooks in the final, and we lost them. We had a guy who had chicken pox in our boat. Yeah. And he raced, and he was sick as a dog. That was his last. That was his last race. Rob Wolfel was in our boat. He had chicken pox and he raced. We didn't have a spare, so we had to race with him. And we lost. We made it to the final, and we had a great time. And so that was my varsity debut, and that was it. So then I came back my junior year. Coach, true story. I posted this picture on my Instagram, and there's a picture of me from Henley in 5 seat, and I look like a freaking bear. My veins are popping out of my head. I'm like going crazy. Gladstone saw the picture. It was like in Rowing News or whatever, and people were like, damn, Jack, you're freaking huge. Like people make comments like junior year, as the junior year starting up. I've been a starboard my whole life, and Coach saw that picture at Gladstone, and he goes, God damn it, Jack. He just didn't like the way I was rowing, and he'd always comment, I moved boats, but he just didn't like the way I was moving them, or didn't like the look I was rowing. And he goes, oh God damn it, you're a port. You're a port from now on. I'm going to change the way you row. I'm going to change your style. And I just go like this. I'm like, and all the guys, I remember, I think Wallen was there, Magnus was there, and they're like, you're screwed. Like all the Olympians were there. They're like, oh, what just happened? Oh, Jack. Oh no. And that was the hardest year of my life. I had to switch to port side my junior year.
Wow.
And like I have pictures from that year, like on like the Road to or whatever the picture company is. And I just look awkward. Like I'm like not comfortable, like totally bad. And so anyway, so I rode junior year. We had a rough year that year. It was 2000. We lost a lot of our Olympians to Sydney. That was where Seb Bea won a silver medal in the pair. And then we had a few other guys that represented from Serbia. Nito was for Norway. Jake, I think, went for US.
So and then junior year, you switched sides. Were you still in the 2V, or did you like move down even further because of the switch?
No, yeah, sort of, but I was in the 2V, but then we lost a lot of Olympians. So then I had a shot at making the 1V. So I was still going fast, and I missed that by like a half a boat length. I seat raced this guy and he beat me, and that was it. So I ended up in the 2V JV, and then we won Pac-10s. So I kept my like letter status. But that was a rough year. That was a really backbreaking, just horrible year. Sucked a lot of life out of me just because it's so stressful. You imagine the rowers out there. And my dad went through the same thing. My dad's coach was Harry Sanford, and very this coach, and Sanford didn't like the way my dad rode, so he switched his side. And my dad, so it's like almost like my dad and I talked a lot about this and every day, and he was really there for me and had that guidance, but it was like really tough. I mean, I almost quit that year, but I maintained.
Jack, in your junior, senior year, you talk about the struggle of surviving, right? The struggle of staying with the team. Clearly, a lot changed with you. You had Gladstone switching you sides. Every rower listening knows how fucking hard that is and miserable that is. I went through a change my sophomore year. I hated rowing. And the reason I stayed with it was because of an ego. Like I just said, I'm not going to let this coach beat me. I had a really hard time with my coach. Jack, what kept you going in that high intensity environment, switching sides and being in the 3V? Like, why did you keep rowing in those times?
I think not to be, cheesy or, play the same thing, but I think the guys, I wanted to be a part of the group. The people involved were just phenomenal. They were very supportive, even though it was cutthroat. We acted like a team. It was pride. I didn't want to quit. My dad didn't quit. Not to keep bringing it up, but I had that connection. I was growing really close with my father. I wasn't that close growing up with him as much as when I started rowing, I liked it. So we had that, bonding, that connection. I was like, I can do this, is that kind of like my dad gave me that advice, like keep pushing. Gladstone, we talked. He was very, as much as he could be, he goes, listen, he knew when I was going through hard things. He pulled me aside. He's like, you can do this, you can keep going. And so, yeah, there's a lot of pride, just keep pushing forward. And one thing I want to touch on, which is a huge deal, and many people don't know, and the rumor is going through my senior year, is that people afterwards, shortly, now a little bit, I get it, but they're like, oh, we heard rumors that there was Olympians in the JV. And I go, rumors? No, that's true. Ivan Smiljic from Serbia, that's, I believe, a two-time Olympian. He was in the JV with me. Kevin White, who was an Olympian from Canada, he was in the JV with me. We raced with Olympians in the JV. That is a fact. So I want people out there to know how freaking hard it was. When does that ever happen? How can that happen? It's because we had just too much talent. Again, on the senior year, Mike Wallen can attest to this. Well, he was in my boat, my senior year, and we had Ivan and those guys in our boat. So, not to put the Olympians on the spot that were in the JV, they don't like it when I say that, but because it pumps me up and it pumps them down. But it's not. It's just that to show you how how competitive it was. It truly was. And
have you ever seen that before? So have you ever seen in the history, in the last 20 years, have you ever seen a team with that much firepower?
No. I mean, the closest, maybe a Washington team. I know there's been some Cal teams, but not like ours. I'm sorry, but Scott Franson is now the coach at Cal, and he can attest to it. He was there. He was a little young, 2 years younger, but he saw it. He saw everything go down. He was, he's like,
I'm really interested. I wanted to get off this subject, but I'm too interested in this because I don't think there's enough credit that goes towards the guys that rode with Cal in these 4 or 5 years. Is it just Steve Gladstone is so good at getting that talent, or is it just the universe coming together to get lucky? Because if it's never been done before, how the hell did that happen for those 4 years?
It was the universe. I have to give credit. I do. Gladstone, but I have to, and I know Gladstone would agree with me if he was watching this. Craig Amerkanian was the oracle in getting like the talent aura. I don't know, that year, our freshman year, we got like 40 guys. We had a guy who's 7 feet tall from Washington that played basketball that we named Big John. He quit 60 months in, but we had all this talent from just random, like crazy. We got this guy, Jake Wetzel from the Canadian national cycling team that's coming down, that's just started rowing. We got Nito from Norway that was rowing at Marin, like randomly. We had halfway through our year, Craig was going nuts. He's like, we're not fast enough. I'm like, I'm pretty sure we're fast enough. He recruited a guy, Lachlan Harris from Sydney Rowing Club, halfway through the year to be our stroke, because he's like, I don't think JP Sekulic is fast enough. And JP stroked the 8 for SI that won the national championship prior that year. And he was like, no, he's not fast enough. He's kind of weaker. I'm like, we all felt bad for JP. Now, JP is now a head coach at Santa Barbara. I love that guy. Amazing. But he got ousted from his seat by some guy that came in for Sydney Rowing Club just because, I don't know. But we were a little bit faster. But just that mentality of like, it just was nuts. It was, the universe coming together. And then that boat set the tone. If you watch All for One, not to be like, going through the memories here, All for One, that movie that was made about Cal, it talks about that freshman year, our boat moving through the ranks. And, Seb Bea was like a sophomore, and he was like world champion 1999, and he was the US guy. But then we got Sturde from, Norway, along with Nito, and these guys just kept getting faster. So the Gladstone effect, these guys came over from their prospective Olympic teams. People like, well, that's kind of like, there's that debate. Well, that's kind of cheating. That's whatever. I'm like, no, it's strategy. It makes it harder, for US guys, but Gladstone made us better as a whole. I mean, he then brought everyone he brought those recruits together. He brought that team meld. Can you imagine I don't know, just the intensity, like walking into a room and you have like the world national teams in your boathouse, and I remember
saying, like, you had a 6, like, for you to get the boat, you had to go 6:15, and you were the slowest guy in that boat.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and this because you train athletes, you're around it. A 6:15, even today, in today's standards, puts you in most varsity 8s in the country. Like, hands down, it puts you in, like, if you're a good rower going 6:15, you're probably in the Cornell heavyweight 8. You're probably in the Syracuse 8. Northeastern, you're cracking. It's mind blowing that your freshman 8 was, your boat average had to be what, 608, 607 for your boat average?
We had a few guys who were like our stroke. Actually, the guy from Sydney wasn't, he was like 624. We had a few guys who were 620s. Jake was like 6 minutes or below. I think Nito was 6 minutes below. And then I was 650. We had I would say average like 610. I think I came up with that kind of like 610, 612 average there. And then my senior year, I was like we didn't do that many 2Ks. We did 10Ks, we did 6Ks, we did a 10.987. We did all these other tests that were crazy and hard. But I think my fastest 2K was like a 605 my senior year, which, it's okay. But, and then when I got to national team, I was breaking six, you know, of course, because you have to when you're in that, on those teams. But, you know, college, you know, I was more proud of the moving the boats on the water. But definitely there was a lot of emphasis on fast erg scores. And for those people out there that are like, oh, erg scores or ergs don't float, I'm like, well, you know, power equals feet, technique is inches. You got to have both, but you have to have power. You can't, you know, it's very rare you come across a rower
You
that
said something that I wanted to write down here. You said power equals speed, technique equals inches.
power equals feet, feet.
Feet.
Yeah. And technique is inches. That's a Gladstone quote. So,
That's out of the 50 minutes I've had on you, that is an amazing, amazing quote. It gets people, most kids, and I say kids, like most high school kids that pay attention to our content, they don't know that you got to just crank that erg. They don't know. They think that you can get by in other areas. But Jack, I mean, the fact is, like, in order to be successful at our sport, you got to be able to pull that stick, man. You got to be able to crank that oar and crank that chain. Power equals feet, technique equals inches. I
yeah,
love that. Now, I want to point something out, and this is really interesting about really great coaches. You said Craig Emarkanian was really the architect behind getting you guys to the team, right? And it
yeah,
was the Gladstone effect that got you guys fast. So often in every sport, that's the situation, right? It's the person that behind the scenes is really the person that created the program. And I'm just thinking back to like NFL teams and Major League Baseball teams. So many times it's the unspoken hero behind the scenes. And you're giving Craig the attention here, right? That he is a major
I
factor.
give, yeah, I'm giving Craig, you know, a lot. And I think Gladstone again could agree with that. You know, there was some talk that Gladstone, when Craig had the job offer to Stanford and he was there for 20 years and did really well at that program, you know, I absolutely love Craig. I mean, he was the guy that set the tone, and I think a lot of guys can agree for the rest of their lives. And then Gladstone just added on to that. You know, he brought everything together, so they worked so well. And I remember when Craig got the job opportunity, Gladstone kind of was like, listen, please stay, you know, please stay with me. And Greg was like, you know, I gotta go. I gotta make this for my own, you know. And you know, I don't want to say the program wasn't the same under Jeff Bond, but it was different because Jeff Bond then came in and coached the freshmen for a while. And Jeff was a pivotal coaching. You know, again, he was assistant coach to Craig, and he helped me as well. I love Jeff as well. He came to Henley with us. Gladstone couldn't go, and Jeff Bond was again a pivotal mark in that. So we just had a lot of great coaches and energy there. We had this guy Wolf Thiel, that was a Long Beach State guy that came in and helped Craig as well. Shout out to Wolf. He's a Long Beach State rower that went to Cal. But yeah, so it's just like all these people coming together and making this unit, and this unstoppable unit. And then for years to come, it lasted, you know, for a long time until until Gladstone left essentially and went back to or went to Yale. But yeah, so, you know, Craig, can't say enough about him. And I think if you talk to any of the guys in our group, Nito or Jake and all these guys, they'll say the same thing. You know, he made it fun and he made it last. And then Gladstone brought it together, made it serious, and made it, you know, made it work all together, and, you know, and then made us faster.
All right, Jack, this is, we have not spoken, Rower's Choice, we've not spoken to a lot of people that rode at the caliber that you rode with at college. And I want those folks that went through it to give advice to the younger athletes. So what advice do you have for the high school athletes that are searching for a college experience, that want to take it to the next level? What advice do you have for them, given all of your experience at Cal, at Long Beach? Like, what would you tell everybody right now if you had a podium?
You know, be proactive. And that's a loose word to say, but be proactive, meaning go out there and see where you want to be. Location is a lot. Now I know you don't get to always choose where you want to be. For me, I was lucky. I got to stay in California. Gladstone was there. Boom. Timing is great. Now my dad wanted me to go to Cornell and Brown. Those are freezing cold places. I'm a California guy, kind of soft. I kind of got to deal with that. So, location, but also where your best coaches are, where your best opportunities are. I would say, again, proactive, applying to 10 different schools. Now, maybe you don't have that's costs a lot of money for each application, I know, but definitely make more opportunity. Don't put your eggs in just one basket. Apply everywhere. Bob Ernst, actually, Washington, reached out to me when I was applying, and I filled out the wrong application. And he's like, dude, you didn't get in. You need to fill out the athlete application. You want to go? Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm going to Berkeley. He's like, oh, and I'm like, I'm already committed. He's like, oh. He goes, good luck there. And I'm like, I sure will have good luck. We beat them. We beat Washington 13 times when I was at Cal.
Oh my God.
I personally did. So I have 13 Washington shirts. I can show you guys later. But anyway, yeah. So for all you UW rowers out there listening, no, I mean, I have teammates that are UW national team guys. I respect them. They're great guys. The coach as well currently. But yeah, no, just
I like this, being proactive and applying, right? Like,
yeah.
I think a lot of youth these days are afraid of that. They're afraid of applying and being rejected.
Yeah, they just don't know, and they don't know their parent. I mean, no offense to the parents, but the parents are more like, I don't know, wherever they want to go. And I'm like, no, the parents need to be proactive too. And for you kids out there, how do you do that? Well, ask your parents. Say, what do you think? Ask for their advice. I know it's hard. You don't want to maybe talk to your parents, but ask for their advice. If they don't have anything, go to your advisor. Ask your advisor at your high school. There was always somebody. Get more information. What do you think I should do? What are my best chances? Advisors. When I was at Cal, my freshman year, I was in my advisors, or the person they give you is the advisor, right? They give you, and I was in there every day, and I was like, what kind of classes can I take? What are my best chances? What kind of major should I go for? I'm looking into this. I was in there every single day, getting advice on where to go, what to take. Use your advisors or your what's the word I'm looking for? Your teacher, like when you go,
guidance counselor. Your guidance counselor.
Your guidance counselor, yeah, that's right. The counselors, use them. They're there for a reason, and a lot of them don't get a lot of kids in there because they're not proactive, and they're not going to go. They may say a few things and have a presentation. Oh, if you want to go to, use them though. That's what they're there for, and they're there to help. And this is I just don't see enough of that at all these days. And when I talk to kids, I'm like, well, what do your parents say? Oh, they say whatever. I mean, if I'm like, my eyes, I get fired up because I'm like, no. And I talk to the parents. I'm like, you guys need to be a little more, because that's the way my dad was. Hey, not go, you need to do this. Have you thought of this? Have you thought of, it's a more unique way. You got to be original in the way you're coming across, and with these kids these days. For your parents listening, don't say you need to do this. Say, have you thought about this? Be different in the way you ask questions, or the way you kind of get kids to think. Because my dad was like that. It's pretty, and it's very effective. So keep changing things, and if something works, then use that. My dad driving by a refinery, or we drive by on the way for baseball practice. We drive by this sewage factory, and it would smell every day. And he'd go, if you don't get good grades, you're going to be working over there. and there's 3 jobs. There's a sniffer, and there's a stirrer, and there's a skipper. And which job do you want? I go, oh, come on. We laugh. He goes, I'm serious. If you don't get a good job, you're going to be working at the refinery over there, or the poop factory, he called it,
I love it. Jack, something dawned on me, and I haven't done a good enough job asking this to other former college rowers, especially guys that race at the top level. But this is my last question. What do you think the future of the IRA looks like? Because right now, for the last 20 goddamn years, it's been the same teams over and over and over again, and you know who they are, right? You know who they are. It's predictable who's going to be in the final, in the grand final. What's the future of the IRA look like in your mind, in your vision for the future?
Gosh, I'm trying to channel, the world of rowing, right? And the way the Europeans are, the way the rest of the world's working. There needs to be more races. There can't, okay, I know it's tradition or whatever to do like 4 or 5, you have a head races, whatever. There just needs to be more racing, more formal racing. I think the kids can agree with that. I mean, I think a lot of, just to get better experience. Now, maybe different stages of racing. Maybe you have like what football has, and you have like, your Fiesta Bowl, or you have different championships around each area of the United States. Now, I know logistically this takes a lot more to do, but I think the IRA could be like a league of its own, sort of, and then you have different, other championships. I know we already do that, but I'm saying broaden that, run with that, do more with that, and have different championships around, and then maybe 1 or 2 boats from those championships goes to, which I think they already do, but I'm just saying more of that, more racing, more events, more involvement somehow, more sculling, to channel my dad's energy, and also just the world of rowing. We need to get more sculling on the map. Now with this pandemic, a lot of people are sculling more, whatever, but we need to get more of that. Sculling is an integral part. It makes you better. We can all agree scullers are better rowers. No offense to sweep, but you have 2 oars. I mean, it's more technical, if you scull, you'll become a better rower. You'll become stronger too. And so we need more sculling in the United States. However, to make that happen, more small boats, more races. I know this is really general, but yeah.
Everything you're saying is the truth. I mean, we watch it, and I have conversations with coaches all the time, and the future of IRA is in question. I mean, I rode for GW, and we were always the 3rd level final, and the program is dead. The program is gone, and I think that we need to get away from the same 4 or 5 teams, or just put them somewhere else, right? Because it's the same teams over and over again, and the future of rowing needs to change, the future of championships, of racing, of like spectators has to change, or we'll lose our sport, period. So that is it, Jack. That is it for episode 1, part 1 of our journey through your life, because we have a lot more to talk about. Now, everyone tuning in here, this is Rower's Choice, episode 4, season 3, part 1. Part 2 is going to be up next week with Jack Nunn. Thanks for listening and watching.